Welcome to the Arts Access Florida podcast. I'm your host, Malika Hollist. This podcast supports the art nonprofits and artists around us. We strive to amplify different voices in our community by creating a space for conversation, education, and connection. Support for Arts Access Florida comes from Community Foundation Tampa Bay, Champions of Philanthropy. Learn more at cftampabay.org. Today we welcome Darcy Espirutu, a fine arts student from the Philippines. I found Darcy's art through her TikTok account, Darcy DSESP. Her page is filled with beautiful, emotional art using watercolors. In this episode, she gives us a glimpse of her start studying art in the Philippines to taking the leap to come to Canada to continue learning. I hope she inspires her peers to go after their dreams. Here's Darcy.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me, Malika. My name is Darcy Daniel Espirutu, and I'm a young artist on TikTok and Instagram. I'm also currently a student studying fine arts in Montreal, Canada.
You said you were originally from the Philippines when we spoke earlier, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that, growing up there?
Yes, compared to Canada, at least, it is very, very different. For example, the weather, it's a tropical country. So when I went here to Canada, the weather was just so cold. But growing up in the Philippines, I was constantly surrounded by people. It's really warm there. Like even people's personalities were warm. You get to chat with people easily and they're very accepting of you. So, and growing up, I lived with my family in where it's like a village, and then in that village my cousins lived in the same village, so we would just like go to each other's houses and like have fun. Yeah.
In your community, is that when you were inspired by art? What got you into art and wanting to become an artist?
I think my drive to start being an artist, or what really drew me into art as a kid, was really like every other kid, how we used to watch all these cartoons and all these films. And when you watch those type of things, you immediately, when you're a child, you're like, oh, I want to be like them. So other kids would like to put costumes during Halloween, but for me, I wanted to draw them. I wanted to color in their faces. I wanted to draw characters in those worlds. And from there, like, there's so much possibilities that you can do. You can create characters inspired by the shows or the games that you play and just make your own little world. And I used to share these activities with my niece who was the same age as me. So, yeah.
So, what were some of the shows or cartoons that you were really into?
Okay, this is kind of embarrassing to say because, I'll just say that we all start from somewhere. And My Little Pony was one of it, and Adventure
Ooh,
Time as well.
that's a good one. I was very into, I don't even know if you would know this because I'm not sure if it was around, but they had like Lisa Frank and like Sailor Moon.
Oh, yes.
Those were
Yeah,
my
I
big
did know
ones.
them. That those were amazing. I think in our country we would even have Naruto and stuff from Nickelodeon. Like it was
hmm
so funny. I love them all.
When you started school and you were deciding what you wanted to study, how did you find yourself in art?
Back then in high school, I had to make a decision where I had to choose either business management, humanities, sciences, or arts and design. So I back then I actually already filled out the form to let teachers know about my decision, that on what strand I wanted to be in. So I chose ABM, also known as Accounting Business Management. However, right after I submitted that form, like during the week that happened, I was having second thoughts. I was guessing more. I was like second guessing more, sorry. And I tried to imagine myself with like dealing with all these numbers, and it just never sat well with me. I mean, I
Hmm.
wasn't horrible or failing at math, but it wasn't my favorite subject either. I only ever did place ABM because, it's a common thing you get growing up that go for the safer route, you know?
Yeah.
But I really started asking myself, why will I pursue things I can barely imagine myself doing? Then I started thinking about the times I used to draw and paint as a kid, like making my little pony characters or drawing
Yeah.
Marceline from Adventure Time. And I felt like that was just the happiest I've been and where I shined the most. And from there on out, I knew then I wanted to take art more seriously. So when I came to that realization, I asked the counselor if I could change it because this was what I wanted to do.
It's really great that you were able to figure that out for yourself at such a young age that you kind of knew what you really had interested in and stuck with that track. So tell us about your early years in art in high school. Like, what kind of art were you studying and how was your experience with that?
During high school in the arts and design strand, we were really tackling on what I thought were hard questions back then. But now I was like, that's actually when you grow up, you realize it's not that hard. But it
Hmm.
was, is this art when you see those abstract paintings and these things are brought to question? And we learned a lot about how subjective art was and how it can make an impact to community because art can be used for so many things. It's so versatile that there's
Hmm.
performing arts, there's painting, drawing, there's ceramics, there's art events, making art events like exhibitions or making an event to promote certain crafts. Those were all under art. And throughout high school, I was given that opportunity because I took that strand. However, on the side, for me personally, with my experience at that time, is I enjoyed it, but painting and drawing just always drew me in because I think it's just what it I kept doing as a kid to high school that I just couldn't step away from it. So at the side of doing all these multimedia types of art or exploring different types of art, I just found myself doing my own art at the side. And I shared it with my peers, my art teachers, and I just really loved that I was learning different types of art back then and learning histories of it and just really enjoying myself with how it's so flexible, like it can do so much.
Do you feel like the fact that you got to try a culmination of different types of art, it was easier for you to land on that you really enjoy fine arts?
I think so because at first, when you're younger, you always want to try these new things and
Hmm.
it'll help you experience that, do I see myself continuing this path or no? Because I really did like other mediums, but at the end of the day, I really did think to myself, did I enjoy it? The creativity, like there's just certain parts of your brain like that you access when you do different types of art. Like for example, in
Hmm.
design and illustration, there's a more of a logical side to it, and for painting and drawing, it's more abstract. So I I would be either drawn to more abstract works, but there are times where I would be drawn to the logical side of works. But I think, yes, being surrounded by so much things can help you single things out because it really just gives you an opportunity to know what you like or what you don't like.
So, can you explain to us how you ended up in Montreal?
I ended up in Montreal because I was in college in the Philippines for around 2 years. And I was studying multimedia arts. So there I was studying design, illustration, um, and soon, but I didn't take it yet, was coding, 2D animation, and 3D modeling. Basically, it's a lot of computer programs. And I was taking that for 2 years in the Philippines. And just before the subjects of 2D animation and 3D came in, the pandemic hit. So
Hmm.
this is when things started to become harder because we were not allowed to go to school, right? So to learn, let's say 2D or 3D animation, coding, and all these audio things as well, it's not accessible to do at home. You would need
Hmm.
specific equipment for that to to learn the most out of that course. And when I realized that I won't be able to learn multimedia to its full content, I felt like I I was missing out so much. And during that pandemic, to make up for this like somehow loss of creativity because I'm not able to touch on technology, I started painting and drawing again. And during the pandemic, it was accessible because you can stay at home, you didn't need much
Yeah.
materials, and you really had a lot of time on your hands to do that during that time. So I went back on that painting and drawing, and I found a newfound appreciation for it during that time. And eventually I was like, why don't I give it a try and take a big leap and apply to fine arts in Canada? Because in the Philippines, COVID also wasn't letting up, but it's also because I found this newfound appreciation for the arts that I was like, let's just try to take this big leap.
Yeah.
Because during that pandemic, it's just I felt like I wanted to know more, I wanted to learn more about the arts. And I people change, minds change. I eventually chose to apply here in Canada. So yeah, I
Awesome. So
ended up
that's
here.
a huge change.
It
Um,
was.
Probably a big culture shock as well. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what has been the most challenging aspect of it? Not only being in Canada, but what has been the most challenging aspect of your schooling that maybe you didn't expect?
Wow, this is a lot because there was a shock to me here in the art scene because the art scene here is very different. Western art is very different compared to the
Mm,
arts I knew in the Philippines. Here, it's very conceptual. Everything is challenged, and there's almost always a purpose to anything you do. And I realized how
okay.
art can also be a research, and how, like, if I knew that back then, I knew art was painting, drawing, technicalities, but when I got here it was concepts, research, political notions, and it just expanded the world of art to me in ways I didn't even know that was so relevant until I got here. So when
Hmm.
I started studying that, it was a challenge because I had to take all this information in and started really thinking about my place and what I want to do and why I do it.
Hmm.
So it takes a lot of reflection with that. And here too, like, you're surrounded by so much art. So to really see all of these things and all these notions and concepts that are so new, it's just, I guess it's a culture shock too. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, I mean, I found your art through TikTok. I literally was scrolling and I saw
Mhm.
some watercolor paintings. I was like, oh, these are really cool. And that's how I found your
Mhm.
page. So I'm curious, how did you decide, how has watercolor been your medium? How did you find that? Why do you feel like it's the one you are most attuned to currently? Because that might change.
First of all, thank you for liking my art. I appreciate that. And
Mhm.
I chose watercolor because during high school, it was the easiest thing to bring around, because you didn't need the tubes of paint. You didn't have to make a mess and bring canvases around. You needed paper. And that's, of course, much easier to bring around compared to canvases. So I started using watercolors, and I had this artist that I followed that since I was 13, and she sparked this new, like, I've never seen people work with watercolors this way. And I was like, I want to do that. And it's
Yeah.
best part was it's accessible. So I started using watercolors and I was so frustrated for a long amount of time with it because I was quick to realize it's a very difficult medium to control, but
Mm-hmm.
that's something I've learned to appreciate over time. So watercolor has this surprise element that in you can't really control it. So it does things you don't know that will do. And I think I was really attracted to that because you can use it realistically and in an abstract way. And I just continued my practice from there on out, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. It's just something that you can't have with compared to other mediums. Like with watercolors, oils can't do what watercolors can, but acrylics can definitely mimic oils, you know? It's just so different. And from there I just kept doing it and doing it, and for some reason I'm still doing it. I'm kidding. I love it.
You're doing great. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
What are the themes of your art that you would say that you are trying to express? For example, like, and I don't know what you meant by when you made this art, but I saw a piece of it looked like, a girl or a woman and her head was, it was watercolored, but it wasn't like the shape of a real head. It was almost like her head was like floating away. And then she was
Mhm.
looking to the side and she had this look of like, I don't know, maybe longing or like she was looking for something. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
just curious maybe even what did that one mean to you? And then what are the themes that you're trying to bring about with your art?
Okay, so I'm gonna say that I'm not sure which exact one you're thinking about because I do a lot of motifs like that. But in general, the themes I really revolve on when I create my art is mental health and really about self-expression. I think it's just so important to remember that your feelings are valid for whatever you feel, and whatever you do. It's important and you have the right to express yourself that way. You deserve a safe space for yourself to do that. And well, I know the art that usually gets the most attention is positive, like, like it's very optimistic. And I don't blame people. Optimism is great. And, like happiness is contagious. But I also want people to know that being sad is okay. It happens. You don't always have to be happy all the time. You can express your emotions how you want, create your safe space, write things down. You have the freedom to express any in yourself in any way. And it's just beautiful because that's a human thing to do.
Since I found you on TikTok, how do you like to use social media? Because I think it's a great way to reach people
Hmm.
your age and other student
Hmm.
artists. And that's why I wanted to have you on to reach people who are, wanting to do something similar to you. Do you have any reasons why you chose that app and how you hope to use it in the future?
Okay, so I took TikTok because it was also during the pandemic when it was trending and I decided to put my art out there. But I just love that TikTok was able to show my art to people, and those people are just so lovely, like they have a chance to see my work. And I've had people message me on Instagram or comment on TikTok telling me such sweet messages on how my art inspired them. And really, it's an honor because it's so hard to believe that these things happen because I am too a person behind a screen admiring people's art. And since everything is online, it feels like they're just so far away, but really they're just a comment or a DM away. So it's just you're way closer than you think. So when these things happen to me, I can't help but think I reached you through TikTok, through a social media platform, and you resonate with my art. Like, wow, thank you for being here for on my art journey. And also that said, I really do appreciate my collectors, followers, and people who support me. They mean a lot. And as for the content I want to continue doing on TikTok, and I think I do want to continue showing my process and talking about mental health and creating safe places for you to express yourself either through art or in any way you find that is comfortable with you. And for my case, it's art, and I do it through voiceovers on TikTok. And the content I'm looking forward to doing in the future is hopefully doing more long term videos, because I did do a lot of videos about advice in TikTok, but I do want to do more about exploring art and just showing them the way I see it more, because it's so hard sometimes when you're holding your phone and you're painting. So like one hand is painting and one hand is holding the phone and I'm recording, and I'm like, there's just some parts that are so hard to capture, but I do want to show that the process is just as magical as the end result too. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, last question I have is what are some goals for yourself in the next, 5, 10 years? What are you hoping to do with your art?
I really hope that by 5 years, or in the future, I guess, I would be able to have an exhibition either with my friends or with myself. And I would really, again, also love to make more video content, because I love connecting with people. It's such a special connection you get to have. You have these people who resonate with you, who can talk to you, and just they can inspire you for your art. And sometimes they'd even tell me that they feel so much emotions. That's an amazing connection you have right there.
Mhm.
You don't get to have that every day, and sometimes you don't even get to talk about that in real life with the people around you. So that's amazing, and I still want to continue creating these connections with people. So I hope that in the future that still continues to happen.
I'm sure it will. I think your art's really unique and beautiful, and there's a lot of artists on TikTok, and
Mhm.
I remember yours really clearly. So I think you're on the right track.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
It really means a lot.
You're welcome. Well, thank you so much, Darcy, for being on this episode. Darcy is a student artist, so if you want to, can you share with the audience where they can find you, maybe where they can find your TikTok?
Sure, you can find me on TikTok with the username Darcy, DSESP, and on Instagram with the same handle. So, yeah, currently I'm on both of those platforms, and you can find my video process there and all my photos of my art.
Awesome. And is there anything you want to add that I didn't ask you? Is there any last words of wisdom or anything you want to add?
Yes, I actually do want to say this. To all the listeners out there, art will always be there for you. So it's never too late to start doing art, posting art, writing your book, or making your own podcast. So don't be afraid to let your creativity run and express yourself to the fullest. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you so much. I
And
really
thank you so
appreciate
much,
it.
Malaika. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Learn more about our guests in the show notes. Follow us on any social platform by searching Arts Access Florida or on our website, artsAXISFL.org. We are a product of WUSF Public Media and sponsored by Community Foundation Tampa Bay and Gobioff Foundation. Copyright 2023, WUSF Public Media.